Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to a new episode of the podcast My Way. Today we have a very special guest. He's a friend of mine. We got to know each other in a language course, in the A2 language course of the German language, online at the beginning. And we talked a
Yeah.
lot, and then we became friends, and then we continued that in Germany as we met each other in presence, not online. And then our
Yeah.
ways separated. I went to another city and he went to another city and he started studying at the university and now I'm studying at the university. But then he did begin something new. He's got into music industry, which is something that I find really, really interesting. And we will talk a lot about it. Music in Germany, plus studying and other stuff in his life. Kartik Zehrafat. Hello, my friend. And first of all, I want to ask, how are you doing?
Thank you so much, man, for having me. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing really, really fine, and I'm really happy to have you on the podcast. And at the beginning, I want to start with where you've began. We haven't really got to talk about that. I know that you come from India, but much details about your
hmm
childhood, I don't know that. And I would like to hear a little bit about it. Where you were born and how was school for you at the beginning? Did you like it? Didn't you? What for difficulties you had in school and some other stuff that you'd like to tell us about it?
Yeah, so basically, I was born in Delhi, the capital of India, and I started my school at Army Public School. It's a army school in Delhi, Kent area, so it's pretty famous these days. And yeah, I actually basically my stream was science and astrophysics. This is what I was more interested in, and I always wanted to study that. So for that, I just started off with more science and mathematics and everything, and then eventually I ended up with doing some sports as well. I played some really good sports, nationals even, and yeah, and then sideways I just did my 11th and 12th standard, which was hell of a ride. Yeah. um,
Could you
yeah,
elaborate a bit more on that? Why was it a hell of a ride for you?
yeah. I mean, the problem is when I just graduated, like my mid school, like when I passed my 10th standard, I was, like in India, it is a bit difficult when you just move from 10th standard to 11th standard. Like the level of education, it just goes up really with a spike, a really big spike. So not all students can make that. And when I started my 11th standard, I was not at all expecting those spikes. So I actually failed it for the first time.
Really?
Yeah. And that was really really complicated for me. I just was thinking I should move on with something else. I should do something else, but then I just reconsidered it, and then I was like, I cannot study something other than physics because that's what I love. So I just redid it, and the next time I did it with more passion, more efforts, and I actually, in the first half of the 11th standard, I actually got first rank in the whole school. So
Whoa.
so it
Now,
was like from here to here.
now that's really impressive. From failing to getting the first rank. Respect,
Yeah,
man.
it was really really difficult for me. Like every single day I was studying 10 hours or 11 hours a day, and then nothing at all other than studies, no sports and nothing. But in the end it just gave some good results, so it's
It,
perfectly fine.
it paid off at the end.
Yeah.
So you said you did some sports. What for sports were those?
I did almost every sports that we had in our school. I played handball national level. I was the best goalkeeper in India in handball. I played volleyball. I played baseball. I played softball. I played some local sports that we have in India. Then I played cricket. which is really, really popular in India. I played
Mm.
football, I played basketball, and
When
yeah.
did you have time for all those sports, man? Do you
Well,
have some extra hours in your day?
no, it was actually when I was in 11th standard, like the first time when I failed.
Ah,
So
okay.
I was like not at all studying at the moment, and I was just more into sports. And my class teacher is always in the first period when you have first period 8 o'clock in the morning, and she's just taking attendance every single time my name calls out. I am not in the class, and she's like, "Where is Karthik Sehrawat?" And then she just like runs to the ground, and then she's just complaining about me to my sports teacher, and then my sports teacher was pretty chill about it. So he was like, okay, you can play sports, but focus on your studies too.
Mm. Mhm.
And
So
actually,
that,
that helped me a lot while I was applying for admission in Germany, because when you apply for Germany, like admissions in university or anything, if you have some co-curricular activities like sports or any other co-curricular activities, you actually get a plus point for that. So
yeah,
sports helped me a lot.
yeah, of course. And I've seen this here in Germany and in Europe in general. It's not always the most important that you have good scores in high school or whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
They look also at the side activities that you do. They want to see what for a man you are or what for a human you
exactly.
are. Can you work under pressure? Can you do something else
Yeah.
as not only studying? But that's really
Mhm.
interesting. And there was another interesting thing in Mr. Kartik, as we've got to know gotten to know each other at the beginning. We were in A2 course, and that was online at the time of the COVID pandemic. We couldn't go to
Yeah.
Germany, and we talked in WhatsApp, and we talked in German. We tried to talk in German,
We
so
tried to talk in German.
yeah, we would take some. We would send some voice messages that were 2 minutes, 3 minutes long, and the whole
Yeah.
content of the voice message could have been said in two sentences. It was full of we
Yeah.
wouldn't talk in
Yeah.
English. It was just in German. We want to learn German. But
Exactly.
the interesting thing is that Kartik could talk many other languages. You've told me about that Sanskrit and English and some Spain or French or so. What were the languages that you could talk in?
Um, Actually, it's an Indian thing. Like in India, we have, as you know, so many languages, so many dialects, so many languages. So the part where I live in Delhi, we have a group of people who comes from many different ethnicities, and they speak very different languages. So while growing up in Delhi, I happened to learn quite a few of them. Other than that, I used to speak English quite good. Till my 10th standard, we used to have Sanskrit in our school. So it was just, you can say, A1 or A2 level, but that's also pretty rare in India nowadays. Like people don't generally prefer to study Sanskrit. Then after that, I started learning German for sure. And now I'm learning Ukrainian, Polish, Spanish, for I don't know how many.
You're
There's
doing all those simultaneously right now?
Yeah, it's really, a mess. Whenever it happens to me a lot of times, when you speak so many languages, you actually want to say something. For example, we're talking in English, and you will see sometimes it would happen. I want to say something in English, but I won't find the word for that. Instead, I would say some other word from some other language instead of the actual word in English. And that happens, like the mixing of languages, it's quite interesting as well.
Uh, I wanted to ask, I'm eager to know, is it the case that it gets easier? The more languages you have learned, the easier it gets to learn a new language? Have you experienced
Um,
such a thing or not?
well, to me, it's a bit complicated because the languages that I'm learning so far right now, they all are totally different from each other.
Mm.
For example, let's say I'm speaking German right now and I speak German, but if I'm going to learn Ukrainian or Russian or Polish or any of these languages, then any Slavic languages, it would be a totally different direction. So in that case, it doesn't help a lot. It's totally different. And then you need a totally different approach as well. in German language, we have these articles and these sentence formations and so many things.
Yeah.
But in other languages, for example, let's say Ukrainian, there is no such concept of that. So you can totally just see, oh my God, it's totally different.
Yeah.
But if you learn like languages which are similar in some senses, for example, let's say I'm learning German and after that I go to learn Dutch, for example. Dutch and German, they're quite similar. So that helps a lot.
Yes, I would definitely agree. But what I was trying to get to is that the ability of the brain to learn new stuff regarding languages, it develops the more languages you learn. It's not just that you have the similar words and similar grammatic. I didn't mean that. I just meant that you're more able to do that
Yeah,
quicker. Yeah.
yeah. In some cases, as I said, yes.
But what's your motivation behind that, learning all those languages? Like for now, Polish and Ukrainian, why are you learning them?
Um, as for Ukrainian, I actually seems to have a lot of Ukrainian friends these days, and the main motive why I'm learning these languages is because I'm making songs in all the languages, all the widely spoken languages on the planet. So there are, I guess, 40 or something like that. So I'm just learning all those languages and making a song in all of them. And in the end, it's just a message that language is not a barrier at all. You just can communicate with each other. You can just get to know each other. And there is no important thing in your life other than love and, supporting each other. You can just always go around, meet people, learn new things, regardless of their race, caste, religion, gender, or anything.
Yes, I would agree. Music is one of the languages of love that
Yeah,
anyone in any part of the world can speak. Anyone
yeah,
could hear music and have
exactly.
those warm feelings inside. I would agree. So we'll get back to music, and you're getting into the music industry a bit later. I'm just now interested to know what happened after you graduated school in India.
So when I did my 12th standard, I actually had two or three options in my head. The first one was, since I was really good at sports, I actually got the admission letter from the University of Delhi. It is a really, like, you can say, the second highest and the second most, demanding university or ranked university in India for
Mhm.
sports. And they actually, the principal and the coaches there, they saw my performances in the nationals and all these tournaments that I went to, and they said it would be really good if you come to our university and we would just give you some extra credit so you don't have to actually write the exams which other students would write, and it would be really helpful for you, and we would get you into the state teams and the national teams. So I either had that option in my head or just go to any engineering field in India,
Mhm.
or just go out of India to just have this international, exposure kind of stuff. So in the end, I was planning it. Then my father was like, okay, if you want, you could also prefer the abroad studies, which is quite popular these days. You just go out, meet new people, learn a lot of things out, the languages, the cultures, and everything. So it would be a really good exposure to you,
Mhm.
and it would be really helpful for your career as well. But if you want to stay in India, you can stay in India for sure. And finally, I just had some consultations with my family, with my friends, and then I finally decided to go to Germany.
And
And now I'm here.
and I'm really happy for that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
gotten to know you, man.
Yeah.
So, as you've decided to go to Germany, and then the pandemic broke off, and we couldn't travel at first because of the restrictions on
Yeah.
international traveling.
Mhm.
How was your first impressions as you've started to learn the German language?
To be honest, I actually never learned a language like this, like physically or like text with this, the writing and the learning and officially, I could say. I didn't learn any language officially. I used to hear people speaking the language, and then I used to just remember those words and how they speak, and then you just like how you speak your mother tongue, how you learn your mother tongue. It was just like that to me. I didn't actually took any courses before or any language institution. I didn't went anywhere, and this was my first ever exposure to that. So I was a bit nervous. I started my A1, and A1 seemed like pretty good, pretty simple to me in the beginning. And I actually scored 90% in that as well. I gave my exam at the Goethe Institute in Delhi, which is near the embassy area. So that is where you actually get the official certificate for A1. So I did my A1 there. Then I was looking for some A2 courses and the Studienkolleg in Germany, and I eventually find out about this MDWA in Magdeburg, and they had some really easy process of admission, and they had some good reviews as well from the consultants that I was preferring to talk to, and they said, yeah, you can obviously like check them out. It's really good. So in the end, I decided to come here. I applied, and then bang, A2. And then we met for sure.
And then we met. We would back then write jokes in German in the WhatsApp group, and everyone would laugh. But what they didn't know, we would spend hours on Google Translate trying to find the words for the jokes.
I mean, when this COVID thing was going on, I actually spent hours in home doing nothing. So eventually I started off with A2, and then I got this something in my hand, like, okay, this is what I can do in my free time. So I was not like learning this language as a source of going to Germany and source of learning. I was just doing it for fun. And I was just Googling every single stuff that I could find interesting. And then I was just like posting it in the groups, and Julia Kobza, she was like, oh, this guy, he's just so annoying. Every single time he's just sending some messages, which even I don't find sometimes. It was a really good time.
It was.
It
was a really good time. We enjoyed it. And then after a couple of months, the restrictions were not there anymore, and we could travel, and we went to Germany. How was your first impression in Germany? And before that, were you ever outside of India before that, or was it the first time for you?
No, actually, that was my first flight ever, not just international, even domestic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Although your father is working in an airport, yeah? And
yeah, he has his own aviation company, but still, like I have been on an aircraft, but I've never actually flown with an aircraft. I never just took a flight to somewhere because I never got a chance to, or I just never wanted to, because every single time I wanted to travel, we just take our car and we just drive, and which is more interesting than a flight.
So going to Germany was a totally new experience on so many levels.
Yeah.
So how was that for you? Could you talk a bit about it?
I actually took my flight from Delhi to Berlin, and the layover was in Amsterdam. And the Amsterdam airport, if you have seen, it's really, really big. So first of all, when you just go to the airport, there are so many processes that you do, check-in, then security, then your immigration and everything. That was totally new to me. My father helped me in Delhi with that, so that was not a problem. But when I landed in Netherlands, Amsterdam, I was totally in shock. Like, oh, where am I? What to do? Where to go? And then eventually I just saw the boards and I just followed the paths. And finally I reached my flight to Berlin. Then I landed in Berlin. There I got picked up by Herr Khatib. He just came to the airport. He just picked me from there. And yeah, after that, it was pretty much easy. Yeah. And it's a really good thing that we actually got admitted in MDWA, because they helped us a lot. Like for a person who has never been outside of their country, and you just go outside and you don't know anything about it, if you have a companion there, it's really helpful. It's really easy for you.
Yeah, I would totally agree, especially that was your first time ever you go outside of India. I wanted to know, how was your impression at first when you saw the how good the infrastructure in Germany is? I've talked with many guests in the past couple of days on this podcast, and
Mhm,
most of them were in also poor countries, like in Syria, my country, in Sudan, in Yemen. They are
mhm,
all poor countries and have a really poor and weak infrastructure. And I believe that to be the
mhm.
case also in India. Isn't it the same
Um,
over there?
well, in Delhi, where I grew up, like we have some really good infrastructures. For
Mhm.
sure, we have really good infrastructures across the country, actually. But in Germany, the infrastructure, it's totally another dimension. Like the infrastructure that we have in India, it's totally different, and what we have here in Germany, it's totally different. If you go to Delhi, for example, let's say you won't find, like so much green stuff, trees and all these things. Like you would find, but not too much. And it would be more of, urban civilization kind of thing with big buildings and all these stuffs. But here you see there is like so many greenery with the infrastructure. So modernization with naturalization. That is actually quite a new thing for me. And some in some ways, for example, the way they build their houses, the homes and everything, the buildings that they make. So for example, Fachwerk houses, they are totally different and totally new thing for an Indian. We have never seen such things in India. So it was really a surprise, a shock, you can say, cultural shock. It could count for that.
And
And yeah, it was.
yeah, and I'm eager to know, are you more in favor of new high buildings or the all the classic buildings here in Germany?
I personally prefer the more, classical things, the more of 80s. I actually wanted to be born in the 80s, 70s, or 1900s, basically that age, or 1800s. That age was like,
It
except for
was.
the political stuff, it was a really good, like, civilization and the good way of living. And I admire that.
I agree. So one could say that you liked coming to Germany. It wasn't at
Yeah.
all a bad experience. And you've
Right.
mentioned now the cultural shocks, of which I'm sure you had many. Could you tell
Oh.
us a bit about some of the experiences that you've had at the first days in Germany?
Um, well, the first few days I was in quarantine, so I didn't actually got out. But after that, when I went to the classes, um, it's really difficult to remember. I've been living in Germany now for 2 years, and I couldn't imagine of any cultural shocks that I faced. So to me now, everything seems quite normal.
So I'll give you an example for something that happened with me, and that was in the first days after my quarantine as well. I went to the supermarket and I bought some stuff, and as I went to the cashier, she would just look right into my eyes. And I would say, I haven't done anything, man. Why are you looking at me like that? I didn't say that, but that was what was going in
Yeah,
my head because I'm not used to looking so deep in the eyes as here in Germany. Eye
yeah,
contact is really something special and important here in Germany that we don't have in our country. So that was a bit of a shock for me. I just thought she thinks I have stolen something, but she didn't. Actually, it was the case everywhere. They had to look into
yeah.
your eyes before they start talking. Such
Hmm.
things I meant, as I said,
Um,
cultural shocks.
um, well, the biggest I would say is Sundays. Oh man, I've suffered so much with the Sundays here in Germany. Everything is closed on Sundays. In India, we never had shops closed at any point of time. You can actually find anything and everything at any point of time in India, even if it's a Sunday or anything, unless it's a national holiday for sure. But you
Mhm.
would find everything from groceries to pharmacy to any kind of other stuff that you generally use in your daily life. You would find everything. But when I came here, the first Sunday, I was just drinking some water, and I was just thinking what to do now. And then I was just checking on Google what thing is open, and everything. Edeka closed, Kaufland closed, restaurant, no, not. And I was a bit worried about that.
Yes, I could really relate. And another thing is that supermarkets close also around 9 or 10 p.m.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
11, 12 p.m. when you want something late at night, you couldn't get it. And that was
Yeah,
a bit hard
actually.
to get used to.
I mean, I don't know if this is the case in other countries as well, other European countries, but if you say any Asian country or, for example, let's say USA or American countries, they always have at least a kind of shop or a branch of shops which operates 24/7. And here in Germany, it's nothing like that.
It's here. It's just at the gas stations. These little shops,
Yeah,
which sell everything for more than double the price.
Yeah, but actually, you cannot find everything there. You
Yes,
can just find some small snacks or something like that, but you can't actually find the food. But yeah, it's a bit weird for me.
I could
Being
relate.
born and raised in India.
So now you've continued learning the language, and afterwards you got into university. Could you tell me a bit about this moving from school, from learning a language to getting in the atmosphere of a university? How was that for you? What did you study at first? You said you were interested in physics. We wouldn't get yet to why you chose this field. We will talk about that at the end. But now, did you study physics, or what did you study at university, and how was this movement for you?
Well, the first thing was doing everything in German. So learning the language, the Studienkolleg part, where you just redo 11th and 12th standard, and it was really, really painful to do all over again. But eventually, when I just finished that, I actually applied for the universities, different universities. In the beginning, I had this conditional letter from the OVG university, so you don't need to actually write any other exam, or you don't need to apply at all. You just go into the university and you just start your studies. But I actually wanted to move out a bit from the state because I was living here in Magdeburg for 1 year. And I thought like I should probably take some chances of going to some other universities. For example, let's say TU Hanover, like LUH, Leibniz Universität Hannover. That is a really good university for mechanical engineering and informatic and like all these technical branches of the science. So I applied there and I got admission. I wanted to move there for the first semester, but I couldn't because of some delays in the admission process. So I applied for the next semester and I went there. Actually, the course structure that we had in Hanover, it was a bit difficult, like a bit different. Generally, let's say the bachelor project. Bachelor project is something that you do in the last few semesters of your studies, like the ending semesters. But there you actually had that in your first semester. So it was my first class, and I just went into the project and they're like, okay, so today we are learning how to build an engine. And I was just looking at the professor like totally blank face. I mean, I've studied till 12th standard and I've done my Studienkolleg, but they never ever taught me anything about a machine like this. I was not expecting to just suddenly have this structure in front of me. Okay, you build this machine.
Was it expected from students, at least some of them, that they know how to deal with such levels?
Yeah, there is this, thing in Germany, like the way German actually study in their school is like the education level and the way of education in Germany is a bit different from what we have in India. In Germany, the students are more, practical based education. They have practical based education where you just learn to work stuff with your own hand, like physical works. But in India, you would say till 12th standard, you don't actually go into some practical stuffs. you are more focused on the theory stuff. So it was a bit difficult for me in the beginning, like when he said, okay, we are building a machine. And I'm like, I don't even know how to make a machine, how to design or how to do something with it. And in that, we also had this programming. And I was like, I don't have any idea about the programming. I've never learned it in my life, like the way they told me. But when we started off things, it went quite smooth. They actually went through every single step, every single way, how you design it, how you assemble it, and then how you program it, how to make it more efficient, how to remove the resistances and so on. So in the end, we had just 12 or 15 classes in which we built a engine, and we just connected it with the program, and we actually made it work.
That's really impressive. And could you then pass the class?
Sorry?
Could you pass the class? Could you succeed?
Or yeah, I mean, I actually passed the subject. I got really good scores, but because of my attendance, they just said you don't have enough attendance, so you need to redo everything. Because in bachelor projects, the attendance is compulsory. You need to have at least 90% of attendance in Hanover, actually. And my attendance was somewhere around 80%. Some medical problems was there, so I couldn't actually visit the classes. So yeah, they said like you can try it next time maybe.
And did you have only this project the whole semester, or were there other subjects that you studied as well?
There were other subjects, but I actually didn't do any other subjects. I just wanted to, you know, focus mainly on the bachelor project because you have like 5 credits minimum of that. And plus, bachelor project is something that, you know, you need to have time for that. You need to get into it, actually. You need to work home, like everything. You need to practice. You need to try everything out and then remember those things. So it was something which I never did before. So I was thinking to do it alone and just leave out any other subjects that we could do later.
So you decide to take it slow and do it as good as you can.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just want to mention something for our listeners for context. Studienkolleg that Kartik just mentioned is a year of studying at a not language school, at a school here in Germany. For the ones who came from outside, from India, for example, or just like me from Saudi Arabia, our certificates, high school certificates, are not recognized here in Germany, and so we have to do this 1 year. And we study there mathematics, biology for me, for Kartik that was informatic, German, chemistry, physics, and so on, and in German for 1 year, and
that's the
and
main
in
point.
German.
In
That's
German.
the big one, yeah. So that at the end, our certificates get recognized and we can apply at the university. But that doesn't apply to all countries in the world. You can check that in the internet. There is a website called Uni Assist. You can go there and see if your certificate is recognized or not if you want to study here in Germany. So back to you, Mr. Zehrafat. I wanted to know, you had an interest in physics, a keen interest in physics, and then you came here and you applied to the university. So why did you pick mechanical engineering and didn't go on with physics?
Well, my main stream that I wanted to pursue is not mechanical engineering. Actually, I wanted to do astrophysics. This is what I love to do. Everything related to space and everything related to these theories and everything. It's really interesting for me. But for bachelor's, I was just looking at some universities and there was not too many courses available for that. Plus, wherever the courses are there, they just, you know, have this really huge cutoff. You need to have really good grades and everything that eventually I didn't actually score that much. Plus, then I just started to look for something, at least something related to that, which is also good for the career, like later to get some job or something. And then I just happened to find out about the mechanical engineering, which is really popular in Germany. And Germany is like worldwide recognized for that. So
yeah,
Yeah, I actually sort of doing mechanical, and then later in masters, I would be doing for sure astrophysics.
That's really cool. So where are you at right now? After the first semester in Hanover, what did you do afterwards? Did you continue there or did something
No, I
else?
actually I actually moved back to Magdeburg.
To Magdeburg, where you've
Um,
learned the language
yeah,
at
exactly.
first. And are you studying now? Are you a student at the University of Magdeburg?
Yeah,
So you decided to go with mechanical engineering from the beginning at the University of Magdeburg.
yeah. Actually, there is this thing in the university. You only can enroll in the mechanical sector in the winter semester, not in the summer semester.
Okay.
So I moved from Hanover in the summer semester, so I had this 6 months time to either study informatic or just leave the semester like that. So informatic is totally not my cup of tea. So I just left it out and I did something else instead.
And you
Now
did
I'm
something
starting.
else, and now we're getting right to it. What did you do in those months so far?
Well, I just started doing music.
And that was, to be honest, a shock for me. I've just seen on Instagram Kartik post something about music, and then some days or some weeks afterwards, he posted a song that he
Yeah.
himself had sung, and I didn't have any idea that he could sing and so beautifully. Could you tell us a
Um,
bit about the experience, how that began? What got you to think about making music?
well, to be honest, I was always more interested in music. It was kind of my side hobby, and I was really into it. And I always wanted to do it. So when I didn't got the admission in mechanical in the summer semester, I was just thinking about what to do actually for these 6 months, and I had nothing at all. So I just started like thinking about it, and then finally I thought, why not pursue something that I always wanted to as a side hobby. I just started doing the music, and what I did unique, I would say, was generally for a singer, it is firstly for a new singer, it is really difficult to get into the industry, to
Hmm.
actually start singing in this, like doing all these things, learning new stuff. And they mostly the singers, they just choose their one direction and one language, and they just sing in that particular area. They
Hmm.
don't move out of that. For me, it was like I would not just stick to this one language. I would do it in all the languages which are there in this planet, like the widely spoken one. So that's when I launched my program, when I would be doing, I don't know, it's 42 languages, I guess, right now so far that I've discovered, like the major languages in which I would be singing. And for that, I'm just practicing the languages, new languages. I'm learning them. I'm just practicing the accent. I'm trying to make it more natural so that the
Hmm.
person who listens to it doesn't actually feels like some guy from outside our country is speaking and singing in it, and it doesn't sound a bit odd. So
Hmm.
I'm just putting so many efforts in that, and
So
so far it's turned out pretty good.
Uh, I will put I will put a link, of course, in the description to your YouTube channel where the
Yeah,
listeners
sure.
can
Thank
go
you.
to your channel. I I wanted to ask, so your first song, you've uploaded until now just one song, yes? A full
Actually, I've
song.
I've done two songs so far. The first one was in Punjabi. It's an Indian language. The second one was English, and next Friday or this Friday, actually, the Ukrainian song is coming up.
So the English one is on your channel. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it. When have you uploaded it? I don't know when.
Um, I guess it was 2 or 3 weeks back.
That's the one that's called All My Life, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the English one, and the first one is in Punjabi, and now you're uploading one in Ukrainian. So you're gonna go on these bases every month or so, a new song in a new language?
I'm planning to, but let's see what happens because I
Mm.
don't know how many days it requires to actually, write the song first of all, then to practice that song, speaking the accent and learning the language and making it more natural, and then music
Yeah.
production, then all those things. So it takes quite a long time.
Yes. But
For
hold on a
English,
minute. So you're also writing the songs? These are your words?
yeah.
Wow, man. So you're writing songs and you're singing them in different languages, and the music, who's doing the music?
In some of them, I'm doing the music. Some of them, I have my music producers. They do that.
How on earth could you learn to compose music?
As I said, it's my hobby. I used to do it like, and not actually do it. I used to learn more about it. So now I started to more practically implement that.
Man, you never cease to amaze me. So, so
That's the point. You should never settle for less.
yeah, I really respect what you're doing. So, could you or do you imagine yourself leaving the academic field, studying mechanical engineering and in the future physics, and going totally in the music industry, or you will leave it as a side hustle, a side hobby?
Oh, that's a question I would have to think a lot about. I
So,
don't know yet. I
so
don't know
what's
yet,
your
to
plan
be
now?
honest.
As the winter semester start in 2 months, what's your plan? Are you going to,
Like,
yeah?
for sure, I would have a degree in my hand. For sure, I would do the studies, the bachelor's at minimum. But it doesn't mean that I will stop my music career, since I've been getting a really, good response from the audience, and it is also my hobby. So I don't want to leave out, the fun parts of my life and just focus on the studies, because that would be a boring life.
Yes.
So I would definitely continue to sing, continue to learn, but the quantity would actually decrease, I guess. Like, I would be more into studies during the semesters, and whenever I have this free time, or I have the breaks, winter breaks, semester breaks, or something, I would start off with the music again.
Uh,
So for that, I already have 3 or 4 next songs ready, like in German, in my mother tongue, Haryanvi language, another song in English, and a Spanish one is coming soon as well. So for the
so
next few months, I already have the songs in my hand.
how I'm really impressed. So a question here. Do you write them in a certain language and then translate them, or do you write them right away with the language that you're gonna sing in it?
Um, it depends on the song, actually, what kind of song I'm making. For example, the German song that I made, um, the German audience, let's say, is more into, this party kind of music and more of club kind of music. So my previous songs that I made were more about, love, and, about a girl and everything. So it was a totally different direction, but in German, it was totally different one. So I had to actually change the whole thing. For that, you actually need to do a totally new research and totally new vocabulary. You need, like, the local references, for example, let's say the slangs you need for them.
Mm,
And for that, you cannot actually write in some other language. You have to focus on the main language that you're writing in.
that's really interesting. And you said you've written the first two songs, they were about love and girl. Is that coming from a personal experience, or are you writing this
You're a smart
so?
guy. You're a smart guy.
So could you tell me a bit about that if you want? Of course, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. We will move to another subject.
Well, I would not go too deep, but I would just say this: like, all these songs that I'm making,
Mhm.
um, most of them are dedicated to someone special to me.
So that's really beautiful. Man, this girl is lucky to have such a lover. I wish it works out for you, and I'm really happy for you.
Thank
And
you so much.
I would I would imagine now that music has been only fun for you. I wouldn't imagine it felt like work, or did it?
Um, y- yes and no. Jein.
In German, this is ja, nein, jein. Could you
Yeah.
explain a bit?
Um, well, the main thing is whatever you do in your life, if you're able to make your earnings, if you're able to make your livelihood out of it, that is your career. That is the definition to me. So if I am actually making my daily expenses and I'm able to cover all that in music, then for sure I would say it's my job, it's my profession. But for now, I wouldn't say that because it's just the initial phase and I don't know where and how things will go. So as a profession, I would not say music as a profession. For now, it's just a hobby. But
Yeah,
who knows? It could be a profession later.
so I just meant, does it feel like work? Like you're feeling like sometimes you have to push yourself in order to start working, or is it just something that you love that you're
No,
always motivated
actually,
to do?
um, well, if it's a hobby, then you don't have to force yourself to do
Hmm.
something. It just automatically comes out of your brain and your heart. You just get up in the morning and you're just like, okay, so today we have to do this. Let's do it.
Oh,
And
that's
actually, I really, the most interesting part for me about the music was whichever song that I made so far, and whoever heard that song, they actually gave this review that we actually feel the emotion at the same time with the lyrics. Like it's not just any song, it's a song with emotions, and you can actually feel it in your voice, like exact emotions that you expect from the song.
yeah.
So that actually makes a difference.
And that's really what's special about music. It's one of the very few things that everyone in the world can understand and can relate
Yeah,
to. And
yeah.
I've said that I don't know in the podcast or before we started, I've listened to your first song in Punjabi. I don't understand anything of the language. Maybe some words I could recognize, but I liked
Mhm.
it. Although I didn't understand it, I felt like something while listening to it, man. So keep this good work. I really wish you the best of
Thank you so
success with
much.
it.
Thank you so much.
And now I'd like to ask you a question. Now, with your new hobby and with your new beginning to study in the next semester, where do you see yourselves in, say, 5 years from now?
Oh, it's a difficult question. I see now we're getting interesting, we're getting
Mm.
more hyped up. Um, I mean, totally, I don't know. I would want to see myself as a musician and as a physician as well.
That's a good combination. It rhymes.
Yeah, actually, physics with music. So every time I'm writing a research paper, it's like coming out in a musical note.
That's a good way to put it, man.
That way you can interest, like, get more interest from people into physics. People can actually have fun with physics. But like honestly, I don't know. I would put my best in both of them, and it's totally up to the fate where it leads to.
So you'll just want to see what happens.
Yeah, I would just keep going on with both of them, the music, the studies, and in the end of the day, you never know what happens. So it's just the fate.
So, and I want to ask you another thing. In your perspective, what gives our life a meaning? And are you finding a meaning in your life, or is one of your goals related to giving meaning in your life in the future, for example?
Um, there was this famous quote that my father used to say, and he always said, whatever you do in your life, just remember this. If you're not enjoying it, if every single day you're not waking up with a huge smile and you're not, interested and more excited about it, then you're living your life yet. You still haven't got your career. So the main thing is whatever you do, just do it with passion. Don't force yourself to something. And whatever makes you just, happy and more joyful, you just go without any questions into that.
I like that. And would you be, so let's say, are you satisfied with how your life has gone so far? Or
Um,
are you regretting something or thinking I should have done this or that different?
um, I would say I'm pretty much satisfied. At some points, you feel, for sure, everybody feels this, like there is something missing in your life. But in the end, I'm a person who never steps back. Whenever I see an opportunity, I just don't think about the consequences, or I don't think about the pros and cons. It just, if it stucks into my head and it seems interesting, I just do it. So there is
Yeah,
no room for regrets.
I like that. And I've read this once that at the end, we will regret the things that we haven't done way more than the
Yeah,
things that we've
yeah,
done. The
true.
mistakes we've done, we will learn from them at the end. And maybe
Yeah,
they turn out to be not that big of a mistake with time. But the things we didn't do, that you won't ever be able to know
yeah.
how it would have it would have gone if you've done it.
In the end of your life, you need to have a good story. If you do nothing, you won't have anything to say.
Yes.
You need to have your final words.
Yes.
For that, you need to spend this whole life.
And this exact thing, the story that every one of us has his own story, that's really interesting to me. I really love getting to know about the stories of other people. And I found your story really fascinating, really interesting so far. You've gone so many places, sports, music, languages, and now you're in Germany and you want to go into physics and continue with music. I'm really happy to get to talk with you, Kartik. So
Thank you so much.
I would want to ask now the why question. And this is my favorite question in this podcast. And it's
Okay.
one of the reasons why I have started this podcast at all.
Hmm.
You've had a very long way so far, very interesting, a bit hard, a bit too hard sometimes.
Hmm.
And you always went on, you didn't give up. And that is really amazing. But why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Where are you going? And what's your motivation? I would like to know what motivates you, Kartik.
Um, it's oh, there's so many answers to that.
Tell me the first stuff that comes to
Uh,
mind.
if you ask me about why I'm doing my studies, let's say, well, I've always, ever since I started to know about physics and to know about science, I was always wondering. And, when you read something and you just think, okay, this is interesting, this is something new, and you should start like learning more about it. And I just started to learn physics, and it just immediately had this spike. It seemed really interesting what's going on in the galaxies, what's going on, what's up there. We actually haven't seen it, but we know we have the evidence to that. So you want to dig deep into it, you want to know something out of the life which you don't see on a regular basis, and you're actually doing studies on that. It is really interesting for me. So that is one of the reasons why I always want to study astrophysics, because that is really intriguing. It just triggers your mind and you're thinking, okay, this is something new, this you've never seen or heard before. You just do some new things, you research, you innovate some things, you come up with some theories, you come up with some new ideas which revolutionize sometimes the whole society, the way of living. And that is exactly what we need. We just need better ways, we just need more in our life. So physics and science has the key to that.
Yes, I would really agree. The more discoveries we make, the better technologies we have, the
Yeah.
the faster we can alleviate poor Armut. Was war das Wort für Armut? Poor. What's the word of poor? What was
Poor,
it? Yeah, poor, arm, the one who has no money.
rich, you mean?
Nee, poor, poor. What was the word? Poverty. The word poverty. Poverty didn't come to mind. Yeah,
Poverty.
yeah, poverty. The better technology we can develop, the faster we can alleviate poverty in this world, and we could alleviate the suffering in many of the poor countries. And
Yeah.
one can contribute to that in many different ways. So
Hmm.
you're doing physics for that. And what's motivating you? when you're feeling doubt, when you're not feeling well, what motivates you and pushes you up to go on?
Oh, well, there has been some times when I reconsider myself if I'm doing everything good or not. Then I just, I don't know, I just sleep in the night, wake up early morning, I just think about it, and the only thing that comes to my mind is this is my mantra to be like to put it like this. Whenever you have doubts, whenever you have questions in your mind, you just ask yourself three questions and you will have your motivation. First
Mhm.
question is, why actually did you start it? You just answer to yourself why actually you started. You answer to yourself what was the purpose of doing that and what was the reason behind it. What are you doing it all for whom or for what are you doing this? You just answered three questions to yourself and you will never lose your motivation.
That's really amazing. And has been there in your life a figure who you're looking up to, who you want to
My
be
father,
like?
my father, the best example. He actually is not um, educated a lot, but at the same time, he is not lacking in any fields. And this is what I learned from him. Even it doesn't matter how educated or how many things that you've studied. It only matters at the end of the day how motivated you are to your work. The more motivation you have, the more you put yourself into something, results will automatically come without any question.
Do you want to add anything, Kartik? Or do you want to ask anything or discuss anything else?
Well, I would just say this. Never let yourself stepping back from something that you actually started. You never know where your journey could end. If you have initialized something, if you have stepped into something, finish it, then you leave it. Before that, never step out. Keep yourself motivated. That's all.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you coming here and making this podcast with me. It's been a
Thank you
true
so much.
pleasure for me.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
man. I
And
really
thank you.
appreciate it.
And huge thanks to all our listeners for being there for us. I hope you've enjoyed this episode so far and you've learned from it as I have learned from it. We will meet each other, hopefully, sometime in the future, Kartik. And for my
I
listeners
would.
in a coming episode, yeah?
I would love to meet you. We have been just waiting for that moment. I
Yes.
can't even recall when we met last time.
It was in Magdeburg around 8 months ago or so. Yeah.
Yeah,
We will arrange something, man. We have to meet each other again. I really like spending time with you. And
me
thanks,
too.
thank you, and thanks again, our listeners. We will meet each other in a coming episode. Stay safe.